Good afternoon, and welcome to our partner webinar series, Stirring Developments at the Unusual Intersection of Advisory and Annuity. And thanks to our partner, Midland Advisory. I want to mention a couple of upcoming chapter events. We have our quarterly meeting, Navigating the Future of Fee-Only RIAs, on October 11th from 8 to 10 a.m. at the Buckhead Club. We also have a partner webinar series, Shaping Tomorrow's Portfolios, the New Frontier in Private Markets Investing, on November 20th from 12 to 1. And finally, our Member Appreciation and Holiday Social on December 12th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Check our website for details and register today. We are happy to be joined by Sinclair, VP of Strategy at Midland Advisory, has 20 years in the financial services, specializing in the RIA market. Please submit your questions via the Q&A feature within the Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cooper to begin.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. So let me go ahead and make sure that you all can see my screen here. We should be good. Can someone come on and just let me know that you're seeing?
Yes, sir.
Seeing the presentation? All right. Thank you very much. So it's great to be with you all today. As Kathy indicated, my name is Cooper Sinclair. I'm with a unit within the Sammons Financial Group, a family of companies called Midland Advisory. And our focus is specifically on the RIA marketplace, plain and simple. And so I've been in this unusual intersection for many, many years and thought it would be fun earlier this year to put together a presentation regarding all the changes that we've seen within the advisory space as it impacts annuities. And so that's what we're going to talk about today with a past, present, and future type of focus. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put my attention now to the presentation. So let's get started. And throughout, if you have a question, feel free to interrupt by way of the chat, and I'll stop and we can address it. Anything in regards to the presentation you'd like some more clarification on. But this is our agenda for today. So we're going to go into the past and find out when the advisory-friendly annuity became a thing. Who made it happen? What was that particular use case? And what has changed since then? And then we'll get into the present landscape. And what would you do with this knowledge? And why should you care today? And if you do want to find out more or have an interest, how would you begin that implementation process? When could it make sense? These are some of the items that we'll hit on. And then we're going to take a look at the future. What's likely to be next in things like solution design. Technology right now, of course, in fintech is completely changing the game when it comes to post-issue management of a lot of these solutions. So we'll get into some of that as well. We've seen a lot of trends and changing in the overall adoption and the specific use cases of where these products and solutions can make sense. So we're going to hit that today as well. So past, present, and future. When we're done, you should have some specific use cases when these solutions are used, what types of clients can typically tend to benefit from utilization of these solutions. How do these positions from a technological perspective, once established, how do they impact your tech stack? Because that's always going to be a big concern when it comes to scaling any kind of a solution. And then we're going to spend a lot of time on advisory fees, what the options are, how are advisory fees taxed when taken directly from an annuity position, what are the impacts of direct billing advisory annuities. This tends to be the #1 topic that advisors have questions about when starting. There are now ways to make advisory annuities much more what I would call, revenue neutral or forward in some scenarios when it comes to adoption within your practice, much like other positions that you can manage. So this is a very nice, welcome change that's developed over the years. So these are some take-home items for you. And then I want to just set the stage a little bit about who I am and why I'm even talking about this. So I've been in the financial services arena since 2000, and the majority of that time have been focused on RIA distribution inside of the annuity world. So a very unique career pattern or trajectory, I guess you would say, focused on the advisory market, with a small company here where I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky called Integrity Life that Western and Southern acquired back in 2003. I was at Integrity. I then made my way to Aegon and Transamerica as part of their advisor resources team, also based here in Louisville. After the GFC, Aegon essentially pulled up stakes and left town. As a result, I was laid off and downsized in 2009. So was able after that experience to end up at Jefferson National, which some of you may be very aware of Jeff Nat or Jefferson National, now, of course, known as Nationwide, was purchased several years ago by Nationwide. And they continue in that role as Nationwide's advisor, RIA-focused distribution unit and company within the broader business. And I've also built advisory-focused units now at Lincoln and Prudential, and here I am at Midland National. So, the joke is I've been a lot of different places. Am I a Sherpa, hired gun, vagabond, SME, subject matter expert? A little bit of all of that is probably accurate. But I've been around the block and have looked at this from a number of different perspectives. Let's get into the presentation now as far as at its core. So who was first to market? Who created the first truly advisory annuity product? And it was Aegon. So Aegon, as some of you may be aware, is an insurance holding company that owns a lot of different insurance company names. So Aegon initially rolled this product out, and they wrote this solution under a number of different companies' names: Monumental Life, People's Benefit Life, and then eventually landed on Transamerica. And that's really how they go to market today. What's very interesting about this particular solution that started it all is it was called the Advisor's Edge Contract. And it was ahead of its time in that it was completely liquid, so fully liquid from day one. You will find in the variable annuity marketplace inside of advisory, this has become, for all intents and purposes, a table stake. You see across the board surrender charge free solutions on the variable annuity side of this marketplace. And the Advisor's Edge Contract would have what would be considered now relatively expensive mortality and expense charge of 65 basis points, but back then that was not the case. What's really interesting is it only had 6 investment options inside of it, or what we call variable insurance trust subaccounts that resemble and behave in most cases like retail mutual funds, although technically are not the exact same mutual funds, but might share some naming convention. Another very interesting thing was those 6 subaccounts were all part of DFA. So Dimensional Fund Advisors provided the investment breadth that was all that was in that contract at policy inception when it came out in the mid-90s, that solution. So Aegon was the first one to market, but who were some of the other, pioneers, and who was it used for, and where was it found? So again, if you know anything about Dimensional, this first product, specifically for RIAs that wanted access to DFA, in most cases, they were DFA approved RIA shops. And also we had a decent amount of do-it-yourself business. There was some that was not advisor-directed accounts that came in, and low-cost seekers of all kinds found out about the annuity. Some used it for tax deferral, but it was predominantly a transition solution, a 1035 exchange product. 1035 exchange, many of you may be aware of that term, but if not, it's in essence, it's a tax-free transition from one older or legacy annuity contract, in this example, to a more modern platform. And that can be facilitated on a non-qualified basis via a 1035 exchange. So when I was at Aegon, 95% of our business at Transamerica, back before the GFC, was 1035 exchange business. So this was advisors uncovering existing high-cost traditional commission annuities onboarding those clients and needing a spot to move those annuities when it made sense to a platform that was more akin to their management style. And in the case of this particular platform, provided dimensional access. Here were some of the other pioneers or early participants, and sorry for the goofy imagery, but this was all I could come up with. So we've got the wagon there, and so we have some of the other pioneers, and some of these companies you may remember. American Scandia also had a contract very early on in the game. Scandia ended up being purchased by Prudential, so they got absorbed into Pru, but had a large installation, I think, in Shelton, Connecticut at the time. Great West. Anyone who's been a partner of Schwab for quite some time on the custodial side, you might recall that Great West had low cost, at least compared to the commission annuity space on the variable side, provided access to a Great West low-cost contract that was distributed through Schwab's custodial platform. I think Great West ended up being absorbed by Protective some point in the not too distant past. And then TIAA had a solution in the space, was very active back at this point in time as an early participant. And then Jefferson National, which is one of the spots that I described before where I had been previously. Jefferson National, which is now Nationwide and got bought by Nationwide several years back. So these were some of the other early participants. But what happened was the GFC. And so I recall being at Aegon as all of this thing was coming into focus in that October of 2008 in particular. And of course, everything essentially dried up and assets were not moving. And being that we were predominantly a 1035 exchange provider, and quite frankly, so were a number of these other companies as well, if not all of them. What happened is when the GFC came, it was a tough time for the marketplace when it came to variable annuities for financial advisors working as RIAs, and things really dried up. And so what happened was there was a last man standing component to this. And that last man standing was Jefferson National. A number of reasons why Jefferson National was able to make it through the other side and come out stronger. And these are some of those reasons. Jefferson National at the time was incredibly unique. As an insurance company, when I was there before the Nationwide acquisition, we might have only had between 120, maybe 130 or 40 employees in the entire company. So very small by insurance company standards and very focused, as this was all we did at that point in time. All Jefferson National actively supported back then was the advisory marketplace with their flagship product at the time, the Monument Advisor product. So one product, one team, one strategy, and the timing was impeccable, of course, because what were advisors looking to do? They were looking to control what they could control in a time when things were on fire, right? So there was this greater advisor focus on controlling expenses and having investment flexibility. And the Jefferson National product hit on both of those perfectly. It was incredibly low cost, still exists out in the marketplace and still is low cost today with the flat fee model. And it had a breadth of solutions to invest in at one point in time, exceeding over 400. I think now that has been pared down, but it was a very unique offering at the opportune time. Also back then, Jefferson National was very tech forward. It was one of the first programs along with Scandia to have an account opening and model trading process that was truly based in technology and allowed for advisors to self-service a bit more and to use things like model trading and mass substitutions and transactions of VIT subaccounts out of models that no one else really was doing at the time. So You put these four items together, it's no wonder that Jefferson National was that last person standing for all intents and purposes. I'll pause there because I've been going pretty fast here. Kathy, do we have, and Lynn, any questions from anyone in the audience at this point?
Not at this time.
All right, excellent, excellent. So now let's transition in our history lesson to more of the post GFC. So this kind of 2012 to 17. We had, hold on, if I get my directions right here on my cursor. Okay. This was the landscape as far as the players who were at that point in time trying this out. Some of these were trying it out again. Other insurance companies getting into it for the first time. I'll direct your attention to Old Mutual. That was a pretty hilarious head fake. Old Mutual lasted all of about 9 months in the RIA specific annuity distribution market with the product that was somewhat similar to the Jeff Knapp product. Security Benefit Life got in at this point in time with also a very low cost option. Lincoln, Jackson, TIAA, I don't know if they ever, quite frankly, ever completely left the market, but things definitely took a pause with the GFC, but they were still in the marketplace at that point. And that was on the IOVA side of the product kind of view. So that's an investment only variable annuity. This would be a variable annuity that doesn't have embedded benefits in it, and it's bought specifically for tax deferral, jumbo tax deferral, for higher net worth clientele that have maximized all of the qualified opportunities they can leverage based upon their particular tax situation. Investment-only VAs for higher net worth clientele can, if appropriately priced, sometimes be compelling. So that was a part of this, but it was still predominantly a 1035 exchange replacement game in this IOVA space. You also did have a couple of early players when it came to the fixed indexed annuity market. And I was at the time at Lincoln, and I was involved with a project to launch the first accumulation fixed indexed annuity. So it didn't have any bells and whistles. It was purely for protected growth. And Great American was a very fast follow within the span of, I think it was 6 weeks. And now Great American is Mass Mutual Ascend. So in this, this transition of companies, you can see what's gone on in the space. But this was really the landscape at that point in time. However, there was a problem. We had some roadblocks. We had to make some detours. There were some issues. And what those issues were was licensing was the biggest issue. Given that the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and FINRA have requirements, particularly for a variable annuity, that say the individual professional that is opening up that contract and serving as the agent or broker of record has to carry licenses that would be more traditional in focus, typically a 6 or a 7, coupled with variable authority, a 63 and a 66, and an insurance license. So when you're working with the RIA community, and I would imagine the folks on the phone, a number of you or all of you could be complete fee only. What do you do, right? So that was a problem. Fee only professionals rarely carried an insurance license. And in the case of a variable annuity, even if they did, if they were truly fee only, that individual would not be able to open up those accounts directly because they would not have the variable FINRA license to go along with the insurance license. Not only that, it's a piece of the financial landscape that many RIAs and IARs and advisors cared very little about annuities other than how to get out of them, right? So that was the advisor licensing issue was a big one. To be the broker or agent of record for a variable annuity, the professional was and still is required to carry both insurance and FINRA securities licensing profile. So that was the first issue. The second issue, I alluded to it before, advisory fees. Back then, and when I say back then, I'm going to speak about this in greater detail here in a moment. We're talking about 2019, that summer and before. So anytime before June, let's call it, of 2019, the IRS deemed advisory fees extracted from non-qualified annuities to be taxable to the end consumer, to the client. What was interesting was the IRS's interpretation of the tax laws and practices at that time indicated that for qualified annuities, there was no 1099, there was no taxation. But we got a problem based on what I've told you before. Because if you're mainly working with investment-only variable annuities and you're working with 1035 exchanges, that's a non-qualified exercise. If you have a client who's sitting in a qualified and an IRA wrapper that's on a variable annuity chassis, you don't have to do an exchange, right, to another annuity product to protect a gain that's been deferred. You can move directly into funds, ETFs, any kind of an IRA platform that you choose. So there was an issue. This meant that for virtually all of the clients that were working in this investment-only variable annuity market, which was what most of the market was back then, it was a taxable event if that advisor were to extract their advisory fee for management of that annuity asset directly from the policy. For solutions not in the investment-only variable annuity category, direct fee debiting posed a lot of problems with the ways that the contracts were constructed. So for instance, when I was at Lincoln, the product that we had there and still exists today was a fixed indexed annuity, among other things that we did. But the FIA was not designed to absorb or to accommodate a fee extraction. And although there was a higher percentage of qualified money that you would see outside of the investment-only variable annuity category, it wasn't much still. So most of it was still going to be taxable, but it didn't matter because product design teams did not accommodate fee extraction at that point in time consistently across the board. So that was the other big issue. So you have two big problems, not to mention a perception issue when it came to annuities, which is warranted if you look back over time. What we're going to talk about here in the future is that things have changed in the present and the future. And they're much more viable now for financial professionals working in an advisory capacity. But that was not really the case as much back then. So let's go to the first issue, advisor licensing. So what happened? What did we do back then? So I'm going to give you a list of companies, and this surprises a lot of people, that have been serving RIAs for many, many years and acting in the capacity of a licensed agent and advisor on behalf of an unlicensed RIA. The first is Ryan Insurance Strategy Consultants. I believe they're based in Denver. I've met Mr. Ryan. I've seen him at events over the years. He's still out there, works a lot. I know with NAPFA membership in particular, he started his practice in 1978. Low Load Insurance Services, now known as LLIS, Tampa, Florida, started in 1998. LLIS was unique and then I think a lot different than Ryan in that all they did from inception was work with financial professionals that would be your fee-only community predominantly, and working on behalf and in conjunction with those professionals to write insurance and annuities when it made sense. There was also a company called ARIA Retirement Solutions, now known as Retire One. Some of you may know Retire One very well. You may work with Retire One. Retire One and ARIA Solutions were founded in 2010. And then what we did at Jefferson National, and this is not how it's done today at Nationwide, but there was a technique, if you will, where essentially a client direct transaction was initiated. And so what happened there was there was a process whereby the referring investment advisor professional was able to be linked back to that account after it was created and issued to be able to see it and to service it. But that utilized a piece of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners Model Act. I know just enough there to be dangerous. I'm not going to get into all the specifics there, but there was another technique that was out there for a while that a few companies did implement. For the most part today, you don't see, and I've not heard of any existing NAIC Model Act direct-to-consumer type of transactions that are very prevalent in the RIA market today. But this was some of the ways that we kind of worked around this reality. But then something happened a few years ago is these businesses that work in conjunction with RIA professionals began to get much larger as far as the services that they offered, and many more came into the market. And now we have this new acronym, the OID. And if we were in a room, this is where I would ask, and some of you may know what this stands for. It's an outsourced insurance desk is typically what we're referring to when you hear that term OID. So OIDs, what do they do? All right, let's get into that. The way I look at an OID is there are 3 core tasks that every good OID should be providing to professionals like yourself. One is literally the account opening process. So annuities are not as easy to open, admittedly, as just a brokerage account is. It's gotten better. That's one of the areas that I'm hopeful in the future becomes easier and easier as we go. But OIDs can open accounts and sign applications on an advisor's behalf. What's really nice too about this model is what we used to see 10, 12 years ago is some situations where advisory professionals might refer out clients and these insurance and annuity needs to another professional who was licensed, but that professional might also manage assets. So in some situations, there was a concern, and I think it was a valid concern around poaching of clients. And I heard some, scenarios where that could happen. And so what's great about the OID space is OIDs, they don't manage assets. They don't compete with your core value proposition. They're there to initially transact and open accounts on behalf and in conjunction with the advisor professional that they work with. They also, if you get into the second item, should be able to educate, expose a professional to the myriad of options that are out there and enable execution of these solutions at scale. The way to look at it is, it's really like any other partner that you might have in your practice, akin to, perhaps what you might find with a technology partner. You could almost make an analogy to a TAMP or a TPIA in some respects, but they should, beyond just opening of accounts, should help be your particular guide when it comes to some case consultation and understanding the landscape. Because here's the thing, regardless of what you think about annuities right now, at this very moment, just know there's a lot of emphasis when it comes to insurance carriers on product and solution design and being more applicable and relevant to the advisory space. And clients are starting to know about this. And clients enjoy the benefits that only insurance companies can provide, such as retirement income. So like it or not, the cat's out of the bag. It's been out of the bag for a while, and it's going to continue to grow and focus. And you'll be competing against advisors if you don't have some understanding of this marketplace. It could be detrimental to your practice at some point in time, if not already, because these solutions are there. They're out there and they're not going away. So it's important, if you're not licensed up, directly to open these types of accounts and you have needs, to align yourself with an OID that you select, that you enjoy working with, that can help educate, expose you to all the different options, and then help enable that and work with your staff to open contracts. And then the third thing that we're seeing a lot of these OIDs begin to get into is this broker of record or transition service work. So this is the kind of work where if an individual professional were to U5 and leave FINRA, let's say that they are licensed as a hybrid advisor, and they decide that they want to go completely fee only, a lot of these OIDs will now offer this additional service to where they can step in and they can serve as your eyes and ears and broker of record on older legacy positions that you might have been attached to when you were associated with FINRA. So this service allows, in some cases, for even revenue to be derived in the agreement. And there's a lot of nuance there, but just know this is an offering within the OID marketplace that continues to gain a lot of attention and a lot of implementation and traction. So these are, I would say, in my opinion, some of the core tasks that a good OID would be able to provide to you. So this is what's been great about the marketplace over the last several years. I'm going to give you some examples. You may know of some of these companies. Some of these companies do other things besides OID. For instance, Halo, right? Structured note marketplace, but they have an OID. Retire One I mentioned before. RIA Insurance Solutions, LLIS, Peach, Locked in Affinity, Pinnacle, and a lot of you have probably heard of DPL. This is just an example of some of the OID partnerships that we have at Midland Advisory currently and Midland National. There are many more out there. There are new ones popping up with relative frequency. I need to update this slide with some of our new partners that we've launched with this year. But just know there's a lot of options out there. Some of these are tied to more traditional insurance businesses. Some are not. An example would be DPL. DPL is a standalone OID only. That's what they are and what they do. Other companies, it might be a unit within a much broader organization, but there's many choices out there more than ever before today. So that's the OID marketplace and space today. Just to name a few. Like I said, there's many more. Okay. So what, right? Well, remember in slide 2, I refer, why does this matter to you now? And I already alluded to this. Well, here's why, because there's dozens of companies, dozens, that are putting a lot of effort in trying to be more relevant and in tune to the needs of your business model. And as a result, there are now a number of commission-free advisory constructed products and solutions that are out there. And we're starting to see even examples with fines in court cases now. There was one earlier this year, I think it was back in May, in Northern California, where an advisor had a very large, over $1 million settlement with the SEC, I believe in this particular case, for not at least exposing his particular client base to the variable annuity offerings that he had access to. He pled ignorance, and that's no longer, it appears, a valid response. So just know there's a lot of different options that are out there, and there's a lot of company and investment and muscle, regardless of how you're licensed and how you have built your business, available to you, and adoption is increasing across the board, especially in the fixed indexed and fixed annuity category. So more on that in a second. I'm going to pause there before we get into issue 2. Any questions about OIDs and licensing?
We've got a quiet audience today, Cooper.
All right, no worries. No worries at all. Let's go ahead and get into issue number 2. All right, advisory fees. So what went on with advisory fees and what changed in 2019? So as I said previously, up until the summer of 19, advisory fees that were directly extracted from non-qualified annuities, a 1099 goes out to the client. Now, when I was at Jefferson National, my entire time there was well before this this transition. 25 to 28% of the accounts that we had there were actively fee debited. So a decent percentage. And again, remember, I said almost everything we did was non-qualified. So you had a decent percentage of those non-qualified contracts that were being debited. And 1099s would go out to the client, but it was not an ideal situation. Of course, we all wished it would behave like the qualified side. So at this time, annuities that were inside of a qualified IRA, tax-free extraction of advisory fees was allowed, okay? In 2019, I was able to be part of an industry group. It was called the Committee of Annuity Insurers that got together. That work started in 2017 and then was made real by way with this industry consortium to petition the IRS to think about changing it. And lo and behold, with rapid timing, much more rapid than what the attorneys told us they thought it would take, in the summer of 2019, we were all able to obtain this private letter ruling that now indicates non-qualified annuity assets can be fee billed, but there's some things going on there to keep in mind. So for any of you that follow Kitsis and read Nerd's Eye, this was a big deal. This is something that he wrote about quite a bit. We can see his article here is dated August 28th of 19. So it was in that summertime when this began. And I can speak from experience here. It was great news. What was interesting was it came so fast. And there had been a government shutdown and resources, I know at the IRS and whatnot, were stretched thin. We didn't expect to get an answer for quite some time. So all of a sudden, okay, you got what you asked for, but there was a problem. We weren't ready as an industry. Companies weren't ready. Product design needed to be changed to accommodate the higher frequency of expected advisory fee withdrawals. One of the rules, and this stands today, is that on advisory fee extraction, to be part of the private letter ruling, you cannot exceed 150 basis points in a 12-month period for management of that asset. The most common fee that we see at Midland Advisory, and I will put in a quick plug, it being that I was a part of this whole process and have helped launch this channel and this distribution unit for Midland National and Sammons Financial Group, we've been very intentional, and our products are incredibly advisory fee friendly. But what we found is that the most typical fee is 25 basis points quarterly in arrears. That's the most common frequency and value that we see time and again. But you have flexibility there. A number of folks take a lot less than 1%. Some take a little bit more than 1%. I don't know if I recall seeing many at 1.5%, but that is the cap. That is the private letter ruling cap. So always remember that. More rules about advisory fees. So some of the devil's in the details here. Another thing, understand that the private letter ruling is an option that solution providers can choose to employ, but it's by no means a mandate. So if you're working, for instance, with an OID, or you're licensed directly and you're doing your own research, and if you're licensed directly, you can still work with an OID, by the way. We get that question sometimes. You can kind of stand back and abdicate your ability to sign that application and still partner with another professional. However, in either case, no matter how you're acquiring information and doing research, remember that the PLR is an option. You can never assume that every advisory contract is going to be advisory fee eligible or advisory fee friendly. What's the difference? Advisory fee friendly means that you can pull the fee. Advisory fee friendly, eligible. Advisory fee friendly means you can pull the fee and not have a number of benefits affected in a way that would be detrimental to the consumer. And sometimes you still see that. So you just need to always be aware if you're considering pulling advisory fees from a contract, or let's say you know that going in, that the way that you want to model this and work with this is to pull each individual asset individually. If that's the case, then you need to be right up front with your necessity to have advisory fee friendly solutions that you need to have as a filter when you're evaluating the marketplace. So it's the devil's in the details. And just because a solution might allow advisory fees to be extracted doesn't mean you need to do it. We have a lot of advisors that do not pull advisory fees at Midland Advisory. Our flagship solution, which has led the fixed indexed annuity space when it comes to the RIA market for over a year and a half, we still have less than 50% of those accounts that are actively fee debited on a direct basis. In some cases, depending upon the technology at play and how the relationship with the client works, advisors may even ramp up existing fee bills to account for management of a new annuity position. They might consider this as part of a flat fee arrangement or offering fee for service. Some don't bill at all on it because they might be making plenty to support the advisory relationship on other assets. So it's up to you. Just because a product allows it, or it's not a mandate. So that helped tremendously. The two roadblocks had been addressed, for most intents and purposes cleared. So with the advisory fee PLR, the recent growth of the outsourced insurance desk marketplace, you've got a lot of ability now to leverage the balance sheet and the risk mitigation expertise of the insurance world for things like longevity risk, of course, sequence of returns risk, right? And Wade Fowle talks about the fragile decade, 5 years leading into retirement, 5 years post-retirement, that very, very important period of time in someone's retirement journey. You can now mitigate risks associated with sequence of returns. Market volatility, of course, is at times, right, a concern, and right now is relatively low. However, that has a way of changing pretty quickly, like it did, about a month ago. So these are some of the basics when it comes to, ways that not only the roadblocks were cleared, but we're going to talk more about scenarios and use cases of today. So we're kind of getting into the present here. So retirement income. I'm going to tell you that when I was referring to some of the investment-only variable annuity work and a lot of those companies, both pre and directly post GFC, these were not income solutions. Again, these were almost exclusively focused on improving what was deemed like in making the best of a bad situation, which would be a client and an existing high-cost traditional commission annuity. And releasing somebody from that platform and getting them to something else that was less cost with more investment options. Now the game has changed tremendously. We have a lot of what we would call new money contracts. These are not 1035 exchanges. These are advisors who are carving out of a portfolio existing assets and dedicating a portion of that to flipping on a retirement income stream that cannot be outlived. Again, if you're working with insurance companies, that's the point. That's the secret sauce, is risk pooling and retirement income on a guaranteed for life basis. And then on the accumulation side, you're going to see a number of options where you can have a protected accumulation strategy that you can leverage as well. What do I mean by protected? Essentially, these are yields that once credited cannot be lost to future market performance. This defines what a traditional fixed indexed annuity does. If you take away anything as far as income or income riders, if you're talking about the base contract of your tried and true FIA, traditionally is a protected accumulation story. You now have that opportunity in the advisory space. And you still have the 1035 exchange opportunity, which will never go away. Will never go away. That broker of record or advisor transition service kind of feature that a lot of the OIDs now offer, this is typically where they'll start. They'll take a look at accounts that an advisor was previously associated or affiliated to on the annuity side, and begin to determine what's the benefit, if any. In some cases, there's no benefit to moving. Each individual annuity needs to be reviewed on its own merits. There is no one size fits all here. And another scenario where we have a lot of use cases today is alongside of some of the other products that you find in the fixed income alt space. Protected accumulation strategy and some of the products that are out there and solutions do behave in a way that's very akin to a bond or a bond laddering strategy. At Midland, we also offer a product lineup that's very similar to what you would find with CDs in the respect that they're guaranteed and declared at issue as far as a yield. And that's a traditional fixed annuity, or what you might see as a MYGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity. One item that I need to address is, and I think it's in an upcoming slide here, is, and perhaps not, in the case of MYGAs, the multi-year guaranteed annuities, traditionally how they'll operate is you'll have a declared rate at issue, and it'll be guaranteed throughout the particular period of time. I'll use an example of our product is a 3, 5, or a 7-year duration that you and the client select. That yield is guaranteed the entire way through. Those products are not part of the PLR in regards to advisory fees. This is not a Midland Advisory or Midland National specific reality. This is across the board in the entire market. MYGAs were not included in the PLR. So make sure you remember that moving forward. We allow, and what you'll find is companies have taken then different strategies here. At Midland Advisory, we do allow you to extract a fee if you need to from our multi-year guaranteed annuity or MYGA offering. That's what MYGA stands for, the multi-year guaranteed or traditional fixed annuity. You can pull a fee. If you do that from a non-qualified account, it's going to be exactly like a transaction, like we're taking a trip back in time to before the summer of 2019. That will be a taxable event to the client. The only time that tends to create issues is if the client and advisor weren't aware. So we do a lot of education on the front end. If you need to extract a fee from a MYGA, have at it. Some of the rules around that are going to be company specific. We cap it at 1% as opposed to the PLR, which is 1.5%. So just know that going in. Most of your advisory MYGA offerings, you don't see much in the way of allowed advisory fee extraction. They're not really designed classically for that. Any questions before I get into the future and some potential trends?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So some of these things, I could probably remove the word potential, to be honest. They're already happening. So one is the growth of a solution category called the CDA, pardon me, the contingent deferred annuity. In essence, what this is the opportunity to wrap a brokerage account position that a client currently has with a benefit of some sort at arm's length. So in that respect, the insurance company is going to guarantee a certain type of outcome, and they will guarantee that outcome on assets that are still housed at your current custodian. So it's a very exciting trend in that one of the issues to scaling solutions as an RIA when it comes to advisory annuities, is that with traditional solutions, you have to, in many cases, if it's not a 1035 exchange, you have to sell or move cash over to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier acquires that asset, and then they provide back to the client value of various things, either accumulation or income driven or both. Well, with the CDA, there is no need to move the assets to the insurance company. So in that respect, it's almost akin to like property and casualty insurance. So it's an annuity design, but it behaves more like insurance. We actually are in this space, and there's a lot more changes that are coming with this in the future. But what we've done is create one that's regarding retirement income. So our CDA product provides a retirement income stream that can't be outlived and the ability to integrate that and layer that into a solution. Right now, our own solution is undergoing a bit of an overhaul, but stay tuned. There'll be more about that. And there's also, I know for certain, of a few other key carriers and competitors in the advisory space that are rolling out contingent deferred annuities. So that is a trend where that's going to continue. The other thing that we've not seen a lot of, but some of, is advisory life. There are a few products in the marketplace today that are commission-free and designed specifically for RIAs that would be considered built with an advisory management style in mind, but there's not much. I know that Protective Life, has a solution that's a variable universal life product, and there's a few more out there. Western Reserve Life used to have one many, many years ago. We do not, but there's I would expect more breadth and depth of solutions in that space. Maybe even around hybrid products, combo products that cover long-term care. Some annuity products, and we have one that does address things that are similar, but not technically long-term care insurance. But I expect more breadth in that space. But here's the biggest thing. The biggest thing should be that over the next several years, we should find that a lot of the tried and true tech stack participants that you currently utilize today, both when it comes to planning software and aggregation, will do more and more when it comes to including advisory solutions specifically within the context of a broader portfolio that you can include in your plan. This has been admittedly very difficult for most technology platforms to accommodate cleanly as an advisor. And it's an area of focus where we can only put so much pressure on I'm not going to name them, but the two big companies that I'm talking about in the financial planning space, right? So the more advisory awareness that we have with the RIA community, and the more need that you have as professionals to not only adopt these solutions when they make sense, but to be able to model and show them within the context of the broader portfolio that you manage for these families. Until that happens, it's going to be really an area of focus for us to continually try to these technology platforms to do a better job. There's a wide variety here of success. Some do a really good job. Most don't do that great, unfortunately, but that's going to be improving. That I can tell you for sure. On the aggregation side, I'd say it's much better there with the likes of Black Diamond and Orion and some others. So just know that. Speaking of technology, let's get into some of this as well too. What you'll find is I look at the tech stack space when it comes to an advisory annuity intersection in two key ways: before a contract has been established and after. So on a pre-issue basis, when you're looking at carriers and solutions, one of the first things that you want to ask of either the OID that's assisting you in the analysis or the carrier directly, are you as the professional going to have access to see and to manage this product post-issue? If the answer to that is not a resounding yes, you need to know that, and you may want to continue looking, would be my recommendation. What most companies do today, and I can speak specifically about what we do today at Midland Advisory, is on an individual account basis, we recognize IAR discretion and authority and establish it from the client right there. In my opinion, and I've developed systems that help operate and open avenues like this for insurance carriers in the past from scratch. Like, that is really, in my opinion, the best way to go, because then it's not a blanket recognition or authorization. It's one that's made with each individual household and client that you're working with, granting you that access. So that is key. Solution sorting and examination tools are prevalent and are designed to assist the professional and client in decision-making. This is another really nice thing about the pre-issue piece. A number of the OIDs today will provide to you guidance by way of widgets and sorting features that you have at your disposal to very quickly ascertain what's going to make sense given the problem you're trying to solve. The way to look at this whole thing is this is just another category of tools that now you have access to. Plain and simple. Do they work for everyone? No. No one's saying that they do. Should you put every penny in them? Never. Never, never. We're not saying that. We're saying that there are scenarios where you can't beat it. And if you're in scenarios where you can't beat it and it derives a guaranteed outcome for that client that they can't outlive and that makes them happy and also assists in them sticking to the plan that you put in place for them, that's a good thing. But good news is the tech today on the pre-issue side continues to evolve, and there's a lot of resources now that are available. But be wary and be sure that you as the professional are provided the air cover and the recognition that you deserve for making that recommendation to the client in the first place and being able to see those positions as you after the account is established so that you and your staff can log in. Then takes us now to the post-issue piece of things. DTCC, DST vision and fan mail feeds, that's the way that this goes in most cases, which is a great thing because most of the technology out there today, you can talk to your account managers for your various tech partners, and you can describe to them your desire to have data feeds coming in. And you can indicate with most of the carrier solutions today, again, I can only speak 100% right now at this day about us at Midland Advisory. We allow DTCC, DST vision, and fan mail feeds either way. So in most cases, there's a feed that's out there in the ether. You have an opportunity to hook into it. I'm going to fly here because I know we're about out of time. But that is an area where that's set up on a post-issue basis. And financial planning platforms are including annuity positions within a comprehensive financial plan much better than they used to. Still have some work to do there. Last thing on this is also carriers like us have understood that you might have a business model that would require shared staff that you might have with other advisor professionals to have access to. So admin staff typically can be part of the hierarchy so that you can provide access to them, even though they're not the actual professional. So these are the trends. We're seeing a lot less 1035 exchanges. I've already alluded to that, and more income and pure accumulation solutions. We're seeing the FIAs growing and RIAs, registered index linked annuities, growing. We just launched one ourselves, and we see this change away from just being a 1035 exchange opportunity. Very, very large RIA roll-ups. Almost all of them have partners, OID partners, and are getting into the space. So it's an exciting time. This is the time, if you've never looked at this before, to start. It allows for scale. That's what all this means. Okay, this last few slides, we just ran out of time, so I'm sorry we don't have any time for questions. But I do want to encourage you, if you have any additional questions for us, to go to midlandadvisory.com. Midlandadvisory.com is the name of, in the landing page for everything that we do on an advisory basis. If you have questions for us, we have professionals that are dedicated to certain areas of the country that can work with you directly to help you and also even help in OID selection as well. So sorry I'm so long-winded. I wish we had more time for questions. Kathy, I don't know if there's anything in the queue we could address quickly.
Not today, Cooper. Again, quiet audience today, but I want to thank you so much for your time and for this very.
You got it. Thanks all.
Very informative presentation. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who connected with us today. Look for an event survey, the PowerPoint deck, and a replay to follow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
great afternoon. Stay safe and dry.